Hi there. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today, Fueling the Future. My name is Shamik Ghosh. I'm Senior Assistant Editor with the Economic Times CIO. Now, India has the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. We have around 1.25 lakh startups and 110 unicorns. What's more, the startup space is expected to witness a year-on-year growth of 12 to 15%. Now, technology has been the prime mover of the country's startup economy. AI played the role of an equalizer, enabling bootstrap newbies to compete with industrial powerhouses. Now, with Gen AI, can startups get that extra boost through Gen AI powered innovation? The key to getting the best out of Gen AI is by looking closely at the use cases and understanding them. And in this webinar, we're going to be doing just that. Now, let me welcome my co-panelists for this webinar. We've got Tara Lodh, Customer Engineer at Google Cloud. Tara, thanks so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure hosting you.
Thank you, Shamik.
All right. We've also got Manish Kumar, Customer Engineer, Google Cloud. Manish, good afternoon and welcome to this webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Shamik.
All right. Now, we know for a fact that, irrespective of the industry you're in, startups is, of course, has got a soft corner in all our hearts. And with good reason, they've done wonderfully well in the last decade. And we can't wait to see what GenAI can do for that. So, Tara, with that, let me hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your observations, your experience working with startups. What does the startup economy look like in India over the next few years? And also, what Google Cloud unlocks for India startups? Over to you.
Thanks, Shamik. I'll just give me a second. I'll just put my deck on.
Sure.
Yeah. So, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Shamik, for this opportunity. So, let me start to help you understand how this world is changing and how analysts have been projecting where things would move. Right. So, there's a quick IDC report that I'm just trying to put out where you see this industry of AI is going to go north of 200 plus $1 billion in 2025, and the key five areas of investment that's coming in the particular space is around customer experience, how companies are going to get more competitive and market share. Employee productivity is again a very key aspect that people are looking closely. New product development is where a lot of AI is going to get infused, and Google is doing the similar. And last but not the least, how do you accelerate innovation? AI has definitely helped to move fast, and AI is really showing us the path of how innovation can be done, leveraging technology and latest that we see. Right. Said that, Google have been in the space, and we have been doing AI in all our portfolios from large to 2015, and we have been handling some of the toughest challenges in the market across different properties that we hold. Right, starting from our search, where we have infused AI to improve our search ranking. We have also our speech recognition systems where you can talk to your search, and we can understand your intent better and give you more refined search. Right, looking from a translate perspective, how do you help in translating in different languages, in different just not text but much more than that. uh, AI has helped us both in photo search, where we can now upload a photo and you can see searches of similar photos or similar themes across. In Gmail, it had been helping us in smart replies and also in spam classification. That's an important area that it's a continuous improvement that we're doing. And obviously, because of the improvements in AI and the investment that Google have been doing in that particular space, there's been a lot of movement in that particular thing. Uh, Along with that, there is also self-driving car, our Waymo initiative, where today we have 20 million miles of autonomous driving under our belt today. One of the other things that we are doing very much is around our own improving our own efficiencies, and that's where data center power usage comes into it, where we have reduced our cooling needs by 40% using AI. We are also looking at protein structures and improving on that particular fold using our alpha fold. Right, from a YouTube perspective, we have video recommendations where it becomes a very key role for our end user to recommend which is the next video that he should look at. Right, say that We have been in this space from long, and Google have been the founder members of Transformer Paper and the AI innovation that you see. We have path-breaking innovations both in Transformer and in diffusion models, and a lot of these are today open source for the larger community to use. Say that as you start looking from top down and understand what are the different areas that people are trying to do, right? I bucket them into three critical buckets. One is where you look at your complex data, right? Things like your product or your catalog discovery, things like your product recommendation, your content recommendation. The second piece is where your interactions are moving more from chat to conversations, right? That's where you become more from a use case like Q&A, use case like business process automation, where you start talking about document search and synthesizing. And third is where you start creating content, right? This is the third bucket. This is where you have your developer efficiencies, which are very important, where you can help developers to write better efficient code, just not code, but also in terms of test case generation, in case of documentation around that, and then a lot of other things around research, where you can leverage AI to do better research for you, become your research assistant and things like that. Now, say that these are different buckets that you have. Now, if you look at industry wide, right, uh, AI had been impacting, and there are use cases that we have been working very closely with a lot of our startups in different industries, starting from technology to media to consumer and retail, life sciences, banking, industry, and manufacturing, and government sector, right? So if I go quickly around each of these industries, from a technology perspective, obviously the most things that we see is the autonomous code generation and completion. Then, if you look at media, the most important things are your personalization and content generation. If you look at consumer and retail space, it's your product design and recommendation, and your uh, e-commerce or retail experience, conversational retail experience. That's where the key impact of AI have been, and a lot of customers are getting value from there. If you look at healthcare, predominantly it's more of understanding different reports that you generate, different virtual patients triaging that is happening around leveraging AI. And then if you look at your financial and banking services, that's where fraud simulation and fraud detection is a very important aspect that we have been working with a lot of our customers. Uh, from a manufacturing perspective, it's more of automation around key smart factory initiatives, key equipment trade and training aspects of things, because generally manufacturing have bundle of information, and finding the right information is critical for them, because the moment you don't find that, it's causes you downtime, right? From government and public sector, if you look at it, it's more of your 24 by 7 virtual assistance that comes into picture. It's also about policies and responses that you're looking at from a government perspective. So say that if you look at, there are seven key patterns that you can identify in these all use cases that I talked about, which is either a search, summarization, classification, generation, rewrite, extract, or cluster. So you can classify all these use cases across these seven buckets. So it's important that when you start thinking about it, or when you start thinking about use cases that you want to work on, you have to classify which area you want to use, and then start thinking about it. And that's where we help our customers, and happy to work with you guys if you're interested, to see how we can bring our expertise in understanding the industry, understanding the use cases, and bringing you the best of the world, which might be Google models or open source models, and use the best of the world to build your use cases around that, right? Now, say that as we talk about models and AI, and what we have been doing, it's also very important that you look at these five pillars as you start building your solutions around AI or start adopting in your organization. Privacy, obviously, that's paramount, right? You start looking at how my data is controlled by me, the choices that you have, where it's just not Google's model, but also open source models, and how do you get everything under one roof, right? Then how do you ground whatever you're doing, right? So in terms of the output that you're getting, how do you validate the output is correct? And then that's where grounding becomes a very important thing. And what is better than using Google search to ground your data, right? And then how is it easy to get started, right? If you're starting and you want to quickly see value out of this, you can quickly get started, because all this is click away for you to get started. And as you get mature in your journey, you start adapting and you start thinking about how do I do more around this, right? And last but not the least, it's a security at scale. So how do you start thinking about security from the design of your application or your use cases, not afterthought process? And that's again a very important aspect that you should start thinking about. I think that's broadly what I would say is my top of my mind. Yeah, my friend can help more on this. Over to you, Shamik.
Thanks so much, Tara. I think that was a great presentation. And I would request the audience to please share their questions. I'm sure you have a lot of questions and comments. Feel free to comment. Feel free to ask your questions in the chat section and the comment section. Our team will pick it up from there, and then we can have that addressed. But yeah, great points around the different kinds of ability it unlocks for organizations. Especially its ability to search, summarize, and classify. And great takeaways for Google as well. Especially, I like the fact around being grounded in factuality. That's got a nice ring to it. All right, now let me introduce you Manish Kumar. Now, Manish, he's worked with a lot of digitally native companies. He's worked with companies in the retail space, e-commerce, finance, and healthcare, and he's got a lot to talk about Google's capabilities and what it means for startups out there. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you, Somik. Hey, everyone. So as you heard from Tara, that there are a lot of different avenues, different verticals, wherein there is a lot of opportunity to actually leverage GenAI. Now, what I'm going to do in maybe next 10, 15 minutes is talk about what is Google's narrative in this space, right? How we feel that we are probably a bit better positions to help you in your journey. So I start here, wherein I'm trying to give you a glimpse of how our cloud infrastructure look like. So just like everybody, the whole idea of using Google Cloud is that we want to provide you choices, right? If you look at in the market, majority of LLMs actually run on NVIDIA software and hardware, right? And there are a bunch of other inferencing layers which have been built by a lot of companies who can actually you use for your inferencing use cases. Now, apart for NVIDIA being a very credible solution to actually host your hardware, your models, we have something called as TPUs as well. It's a homegrown Google product called Tensor Processing Unit, and it's pretty capable of actually running your LLMs as well. As I said, it's all about providing different choices to our customers. So not just NVIDIA, we have our own hardware solution as well. And just like in the community, there are a lot of different inferencing solutions which can help you. We have also inbuilt a lot of these solutions in terms of JAX, XLA, different frameworks, right, that you can leverage to host your models. Apart from that, I'm sure everybody would concur with the fact that getting accelerators right now in the market is probably one of the steepest challenge. Now, just like all other cloud providers and different players we have in the market, right, we have different offerings. But there is one unique offering which I feel kind of sets Google apart. So apart from providing accelerator in forms of on-demand capacity and also reserved capacity, we have something called as dynamic workload scheduler, DWS. It's a new concept. I'm sure a lot of others would catch up to it as well, but it's just a new feature which using which you can get more predictability of getting those accelerators, right? Based on whatever billing format you have, whether you want to consume your accelerators on demand or reservation, you will get that. But just enabling this pretty simple feature, the predictability of getting hardware increases simply because it's something which is being managed through a different capacity pool. Now it's live right now. It's available through different platforms on Google Cloud. Whether you are a GKE customer who want to host your models on Kubernetes, or you are a MLOps guy who want to do it on Vertex AI, right? DWS as a feature is available on both platforms. Apart from that, I think I don't have to talk about scale. Google has almost 15 plus apps who serve almost half billion users, right? At that scale, I don't think your training or inferencing use case would be something we wouldn't be able to cater to. And last but not the least, sustainability. Now it's getting very important, right? As we continue to yearn for more hardware, and with a lot of data coming in, the hardware requirements are increasing. In fact, we have kind of reached that stage when we are talking about how to harness nuclear energy to power these huge data centers, right? Now, it's a unique fact of Google that out of all cloud providers, Google has been carbon neutral from 2007, right? And we have this plan to actually be carbon neutral by 2030. And mind you, even though hardware requirements have substantially increased in last couple of years thanks to LLM rise, we still continue to have that goal to be carbon neutral by 2030. So I think that speaks a lot, and that's where probably I would want to call out a couple of things which infrastructure from point of view we can help you. Now, I would also want to take this opportunity to talk about one of the models family that we have recently released in December, right? What you're looking at the screen is Gemini 2.0 series. Now, if I have to talk about Gemini as a journey, we were probably the first player in the market who came up with Gemini 1.0, which was the first multi-modality LLM, right? The input can be of different forms, speech, video, text, anything. And it was natively multimodal, which means all the embeddings at from the bottom layer are actually saved together. So that was a premium thing that we started with. Then we moved on, we introduced Gemini 1.5, wherein we were the first one to introduce world's largest, longest context window of up to 1 million and then up to 2 million, right? And now we are taking that a notch above. And with the release of Gemini 2.0, what we are positioning is kind of a model which is agentic ready, right? I mean, at end of the day, it's all about building the agent which will make our lives easier. And we can say probably that Gemini 2.0 is the model which is agent ready. Now it comes with its own bells and whistles, and couple of things that I would want to call out is not just the input can be different multimodalities, the output now would be also multimodality, right? So of course we have a specific LLM generation product which can generate image and video, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. But now Gemini can do that as well, right? And apart from that, it's pretty fast, even faster than what we had for 1.5, right? So I would encourage everybody to take a look. And it's not just about we blowing our own trumpet. I think that's what different market neutral benchmarkers are also saying. So if you look at the LLMs arena, Gemini has been there for a couple of weeks now, right? There are a couple of Gemini models that have been released. So I'm sure everybody understands LLM sys arena, wherein you get a couple of models, you don't know what they can do. You get an input prompt, you get an output, and you would never know which model that was, right? Based on which model you select, based on your own preference, they build a ranking system. And that's where Gemini has been on top of the chart for a while. Vectra is again a company who build RAG solutions, and based on their benchmarking, they have found that Gemini is probably one of the models which is least in hallucinations, right? Again, one more credible company called Open Router. I think I will probably show one more graph wherein Open Router is talking about, right? Okay, first of all, what is Open Router? So they are kind of a marketplace wherein you will get bunch of these LLMs, both the closed source LLMs and also the open source LLM. And it's kind of a load balancer, right? Based on the input which is coming, your prompt will be routed to a specific LLM to respond. And they have couple of, just like a load balancer, they have a couple of drivers, metrics they look at before actually passing it on. And if you go to their website, openrouter.io, you would probably see that in the last month, right, Google Gemini 1.5 Flash has come up the charts. And even last night when I was checking, Gemini Flash 2.0 was the top model for the last week. So it's not just that Google is talking about their models now. The third party, the open source, these benchmarking platforms are taking notice of the capability of Gemini series. I will also take this opportunity to talk about two specific solutions that we have launched. Imagen 3, right? Imagen 3 is just an image generation model. There are a lot of other competitor products in the market, but I would highly encourage to maybe check out this model. Now, there are a couple of factors about it which I would want to call out. For example, something called a safety filter and watermark. Without taking name, there are different providers, and basically image generation models, they are trained on the image data, right? And if a model generates an image which in the real world kind of represents something, and you are penalized by a legal case or something, they don't have any clause to help you. Google, from the start itself, we have an indemnity clause wherein we specifically call out that if you use a model and if it generates something which you might get a legal case on, we are there to help you, right? And of course, just to make sure we can differentiate between different images, we have a concept of synth ID as well. It's kind of a watermark, it's an invisible watermark which can be used to differentiate between images and what was the source of their generation. Now, apart from Imagen 3, we have launched a new video generation model as well. Vio was the first generation model. I think last week we have released Vio 2. It's a pretty good model. Twitter is berserk about how it is probably doing much better than other models in the market. So I would definitely encourage you all to go and try it out. Right now it's available and you can probably create 6-second videos, and with our plans for next quarter, you will be able to extend that mid video. Personally, if you ask me, I have tried it out. While we are trying to make sure that videos look realistic, we are also making sure that the accuracy and the physics in the video is realistic, right? Okay, moving forward, I think, as I said, we are gonna move into the world of agents, and this is how we envision it, right? And as I talked about, that models are doing pretty well. It's not just about the model, because models will come and go, and every cloud provider or third party is releasing models all the time. What I think we should be concentrating on is the platform. Now, Google has a very unique story in this series. Now, if you look from the bottom up to the up, from the silicon at the bottom to the service at the top, the whole stack is a unified stack, right? This is a stack that Google owns. It's not like we are dependent, let's say, on a third party for our models or the framework or for the hardware, right? The whole stack is governed and managed by Google on its own. So if you talk about security, if you talk about enterprise readiness, if you talk about the faster innovation, Google has it all, right? Okay, one thing I'll call out is Google has been slow and steady in releasing model with all these great capabilities. But from the day one itself, we were pretty sure that startups would use these LLMs in their products, in their business, and we have to be enterprise ready. And whatever you have been hearing in the market about competitor releasing a lot of new features, they are kind of incremental releases trying to come to the level of what Google has released for a couple of quarters now, right? So for example, we have already something called as prompt optimizer. So if you're writing a prompt, we have a tool which can actually help you make prompt better, right? As they say, the next best language for coding is going to be English, because you will ultimately use LLMs to write your code, right? So we have an optimizer for it. We have a supervised fine tuning for our models, which means training. We have done it, right? OpenAI, Google, Meta, we have invested enough money to train our models. Now, for your use case, you might want to fine tune the model, and we provide that functionality. We were the first one to introduce distillation as well. What is distillation? It's about making a larger model a smaller one while making sure the smartness continues to be the same, right? So we do provide that. Model evaluation. If you want to stack rank and maybe compare models to each other against the output they generate, you can do all of it out of our Vertex AI platform. And last but not the least, if you look at the benchmarkings, models are more or less the same. I think it's all about consuming your model for your use case and then figuring out its efficacy. But at the same time, Gemini as a model is grounded by Google search, the best internet crawling search engine out there, right? So whatever you get, it's pretty detailed in terms of grounding and factuality. As I called out, I won't spend a lot of time here, but DeepMind has created a technology and it is being adopted by very large players is SynthID, right? So whatever gets created by generative AI, there has to be a way we can differentiate from what is real and what has been created synthetically, right? So we provide that feature to look at that. And of course, identity as well. As I said, Google, as part of our commitment to our customers, we make it clear from the start that if you are using our technology, LLM specifically, and if we generate something and then you have to go through some legal assurances, compliances, we are here to save you. Google has the platform, Google have their own models, but does not mean that it's one for all, right? Apart from having our own model, we kind of have collaboration with a lot of different third-party providers as well, right? Including Meta's Llama or Mistral models or different models out there from Anthropic. We also have our own open source model called Gemma series, right? It comes with different domain implementations, and if you go into Vertex AI, our MLOps platform, you would be able to consume all these different kind of models from our marketplace, which we call as Model Garden. Now, at end of it all, what I just want to call out is that Google just don't have a unified stack to help you in your enterprise journey and doing faster innovation. At end of it, I just want to call out that we have probably the best models in the industry right now, right? If you want to use Google model, fair. If you don't, there are other models as well to suit your use case. If you are a no code user, a low code or high code, wherein you are a research scientist or a data scientist who want to build model from the scratch, Vertex AI is the platform to be there, right? And all of this happens while we have this ultimate goal of building AGI, right? With being enterprise ready. So these are a couple of factors I wanted to call out when you are evaluating not just the model, but the platform for your next GenAI enabled application. Also, one very unique thing with Google is when we commit to our customer and we work with them, the whole idea of is having not to come just as a Google Cloud helper. We come with a one Google ecosystem, and probably from all the uh, knowledge that we have gained working on YouTube, DeepMind, and other different verticals under Alphabet, we want to help you, right? Okay, this is the startup journey. This is something wherein we call out that we invite all these startups to get onboarded with Google Cloud. You would see that right from the 2K starting tier up to 250K for AI first companies. We have a very solid roadmap, right? You can follow a process which I'm just gonna show up later. You can scan the barcode and get started with your journey on Google Cloud, right? Uh, yeah, so this is the barcode. Please help yourself. Take out your phones, scan it, fill out the form, and get engaged with our teams so that they can help you. Okay, that's all I think I had. Thanks a lot, Somik, for hosting us. I hope it was helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, more than me, I really hope it was helpful for our audience. And that was a great presentation. And yes, we would want to know a lot more about what Google Cloud can do, and especially what Gemini can do for the enterprise. I've been tracking Gemini for very closely for quite some time now, and compared to its peers, I believe multimodal capabilities is one thing that's helping Gemini stand out, and that's been a core focus point for Gemini right from the beginning. And of course, least in data hallucinations, and also you having a lot of enterprise-ready API options. I think it makes Gemini more aligned to enterprise use cases in comparison to the other, commercially available ones right now. Um, But let's start with some of the use cases that our audience really wants to know about. And for that, let me bring Tara uh, for the question here. Tara, if you could join me, just joining your camera, please.
Yep, Shamik, yep, I'm here.
All right, great. So, Tara, talking about use cases, now we've heard about a lot of use cases, be it content generation, personalization, risk assessment, or today, as you both pointed out, writing code. Which GenAI use cases are you most excited about?
Okay, so I think I'm more excited about, if you ask me, uh, more from a voice perspective. How do I enable my user to leverage his voice to do his part of the work, right? It might be talking to a search, it might be talking to your code, it might be talking to generate your daying job that you do, or leveraging voice for doing lot more than what you can do, right? So that's something that I see the future, where all applications will inbuild voice as part of your assistance, from the way you search to the way you talk to your colleagues, to the way you work do your work on a day-to-day basis. Voice will be a very important aspect to the whole journey, and I think that's something that I'm very excited about, how Gen AI and AI models are going to impact the way we do our work in future.
All right, all right. Well, the nerd in me is a little, excited about this. So I would want to tap into Manish's inputs as well. Manish, personally, that inner geek in you, what are you most excited about when you're talking about Gen AI use cases?
Oh, if you ask me, as Tara, I think Tara did a fantastic job of talking about how different startups can actually leverage a potential of plethora of offerings that we have now, right? If you ask me personally, I think one of the conversations when I'm having with a startup, I definitely call out is there is a huge potential, right? Very big players have done a lot of great job in building these models, training them. Now, I usually tell all these startups that build a app which is powered by GenAI. Don't go trying to build a GenAI app itself, right? That is a very important feedback that I give. And as Tara talked about, I think there is a lot of potential. I think a couple of things that Google has done, something like Project Astra, right? Where you can probably have a model sitting right in your glasses. So when you're walking on the road, you don't need to pull out your phone to look at the map. In your glasses itself, you will be able to see the roads and navigate accordingly. Waymo is already out there in San Francisco and couple of other cities in US, right? So I see a lot of potential, and I'm sure a lot of startups are already thinking how to actually make their apps Gen AI powered.
Right, right. Now, Manish, now let's look at, step back a few years and look at how AI influenced the startup space. AI served as a great equalizer. It enabled a lot of startups to compete with the major enterprises. Uh, with Gen AI now, how do you mean? How do you see this competition playing out, and what does it mean for startups? What capabilities can it unlock for them?
Oh, I think the playing field has kind of leveled now. You know, one of the benefits startups have against, let's say, enterprise companies that they don't have a lot of bureaucracy and they can move very fast. And with this LLM landscape, which is changing so often and better models coming every alternate day, I think there is a lot of potential for them to actually leverage them, right? And get a solid head start against and other enterprises which might be actually trying to mull over which is the technology, which is the model, which is the enterprise that they need to go with.
Right. Thank you for that. Now, Tara, coming to you, a lot of CIOs would want to know, how do you actually go about the first step, and that is, how do you pick the right use case? A lot of CIOs are there looking for AI pilot or Gen AI pilot projects. They're looking at low hanging fruits, ones with low risk and high impact. What would be your tips to them? How do they pick the right use case to pursue?
Okay. So I think first thing you have to look at your maturity as an organization, what kind of capabilities you hold, right? And I would say first look at inside rather than looking at out, right? So look at inside, and I think key pillars that you should start thinking about is more of automation. That's a key pillar that you should start thinking about. How can I help my internal users, my employees, to automate their day-to-day job so that they become more productive. It can be a developer getting more assistance in the way he generates code, write codes, plans his day, right? From a tester, getting more opportunity to build these test cases and things like that. From an administrator to get more support in terms of automating his scripts, writing scripts for him, right? To his marketing team, finance team, and so on and so forth, right? So that's a very important use case where you automate using GenAI. The second important thing is you start looking at how do you add value to your user, where they can do much higher work, right? These are the two key areas I think where you should start looking at it internally to build. And once you build that confidence and you've seen the output and the success, take these things to your users.
All right. Thank you for that. Then I've got another subsequent question for you. And this is around the data strategy. What
Mhm.
do you think is the ideal data strategy to support AI or Gen AI capabilities?
Yeah, so data becomes a very important thing, right? And there are a couple of things that you have to start thinking about when you look at data, right? First, in an enterprise, typically there are a lot of silos of data, right? You have data in different systems, different application. You have duplication of data, right? You have data in across your transaction system, across your analytical systems, across your backup, and so on and so forth, right? So there is a huge duplicacy of data. There is a silos of data that you've built over time. The first important thing is how do you break this. That's the first thing that you start thinking about it, right? And as you start building your own data strategy and you start building your uh, reducing the silos across different data and reducing the duplication that you have, and improve your quality of data, right? So quality, consolidation of your data, governance around that, so that what you have done you continue doing the same, right? I have seen typically a mature enterprise having 30 to 50% reports scheduled on a daily basis which no one reads, right? The reports are coming, you're putting so much effort in building those reports, so much IT infrastructure goes into it, but no one uses it, right? They're obsolete, they're no more used, right? So how do you have a governance layer so that you know which are obsolete and you continuously do this as an effort? How do you give access to the right people and the data is available for people to access in the real time? That's another key important. And last but not the least is the scalability and performance of your whole system, right? These key four pillars is where you have to focus so that you have a right data strategy to empower your AI journey and give you more output around that.
All right. All right. Thank you. We've got our audience question coming in. We've got the first one coming in from Remanchi. And Remanchi is asking us, how do users know which data is being used for Gen AI?
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you want to understand. It's more important that the data that you are using, you own the ownership of the data, right? So you should be ensuring that if you are using user data for your journey, ensure that this is you have the right permissions to use it. Point number one. Point number two, you have control over your data so that it's not going out and not someone else is training with your data, right? Models are not getting trained so that the PII data and other things are taken care of. So as an organization, as you build applications around it, it's very important that you work with your PII data very clearly, you anonymize your data very clearly, and you should have ensured that the data that you're using is more for training and your users are aware of it. So that's the important that you should be aware when you're building leveraging your data.
All right, thank you for that. Moving on to my next question, I've got quite a few interesting questions coming up. There's a brilliant one around data security, and that's of course one of the major concerns around Gen AI at this point in time. But before that, let's look at the economics of Gen AI, and for that, Manish, let me rope you in. Let me hear your inputs on this. Uh, a lot of companies, a lot of startups out there are bootstrapped, so they've got limited IT budgets. How do they ensure that they're able to get the maximum ROI from GenAI deployments?
Manish, you're on
Uh,
mute.
I'll probably fall back to the statement I made initially, right? It's all about ensuring that you are building your app which is powered by GenAI. Now, if you talk about the TCO, I think a lot of things have changed over years. There was a time in 2023 to generate an image, you had to shell out a couple of dollars, right? Now you
Right.
can do it in couple of cents. The the call to that API, the pricing for that has substantially decreased over 100x, right? And that will continue to happen as we have more players in the market. The constant battle between open source and closed source models, it will continue to happen. And I think startups are in the right place to actually leverage this opportunity there, right? So what I would call out definitely is that don't get into that mindset wherein you have to continue to change the models, because models will come and go, right? Everybody will come up with a new model. I think what you have to subscribe to is into the platform, and the you have to build that confidence with that provider. I mean, somebody who are using Google Gemini APIs, uh, over the years they have gotten much better. The pricing is probably cheapest right now, while making sure that the capability is the best, right? So you have to instill that confidence, work with the player you think makes more sense with you. And I think I mean, there is a lot of potential out there.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Manish, also, CIOs, the other thing that they are talking about is they sometimes have to face a conundrum when it comes to the build versus buy decision, especially for AI, Gen AI models. What questions do you think CIOs must ask themselves when they're taking a call on build versus buy? And additionally, what capabilities must they look for while choosing the right partner?
Um, I think this is one of the questions I get so often while having conversation with all these CXOs. And the only statement I make is, unless you are at a scale wherein you are have a problem of scaling, right? You have a platform team, engineering team with double digit engineers sitting who know Kubernetes and maybe virtual machines and how to run a stack capably, right? You should start small. I mean, a lot of players, including Google, have released these APIs who are top notch in their capability, and they're pretty cheap to get started with as well. Now, your North Star as a upcoming startup is to actually provide the best value to your end customer, right? You don't want to be tech first, tech savvy organization on day one. That is a problem you have to solve when you are probably at a Facebook level, if not Facebook, at least at a level wherein you are serving millions of users, right? And frankly, until you get to that stage, it doesn't make sense to build your own infrastructure stack, buy these GPUs, TPUs at their cost, and then have a platform team which actually is responsible for maintaining that, right? All of
Mhm.
that very mature cloud providers have already done for you. So I think the message is that start small, leverage SaaS, that is pre-trained APIs, Gemini, Soras, OpenAIs, whatever suits your use case, right? And then when you are at a scale wherein doing something like open source makes sense, then start evaluating different hardware, different stacks, different inferencing layers, how they can help you.
Understood. All right. Now, I've got one question coming in from Sanku Lahiri, and this question goes to both of you, Tara and Manish, whoever wants to pick this up. Now, we know for a fact that a lot of growth in the startup economy has been driven by India's tier two and tier three cities. And this is why the ability to understand, analyze regional languages is very, very important. So, Sanku's question here is there any LLM model available that is seriously working on Indian languages? And also, if you could tell us, the Google's perspective on it, how do you look at Indian languages and your capabilities in improving that?
Yep, let me take it first, right? So, good question, right? And then we Google is really invested in this particular aspect. So, if you look at India, right? India has roughly 400 different kinds of languages that people speak, and again, there are multiple variety of this 400, right? If you talk about Hindi, Hindi has multiple formats of Hindi, right? Every 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer you go, you have a different version of Hindi that people speak, right? Most important thing that it is there is not this particular thing is the data availability. uh, the low tail of this particular languages, there is very less amount of data, right? And Google has a very dedicated initiative with our Google Research and IISc, where they're working in collecting this data, or working on getting this data and building our models around this. Today, if you look at, we have more than 10 plus languages that we support, and we have a roadmap of lot more to cover as we move ahead, right? We are working, and we have a huge roadmap around that, so we will be able to tackle it as we move and mature. Manish?
No, I'll just concur what Tara said. I think we support a lot of languages, and a very recent release that we have put out as live streaming API. So head over to your AI studio, and when you're talking to that Gemini, it can actually converse with you in Hindi and couple of other languages, right? And
Mhm.
it's just not that Google is solving it. Of course, Google is paving path there, but there are a lot of different companies out there, right? Including Ola, Skritrem, then Sarvam, which
Mhm.
have their own data set called OpenHati. They are building their own tokenizers, which can actually understand different Indic languages, and based on that, they are building these LLMs. So, of course, I mean, there is a substantial work being done in India right now.
All right. We've got a great question coming in from Anish Srimali. Well, more than a question, it's actually an observation, and he's absolutely right about a lot of the things he's mentioned here. So Anish is asking, how GenAI will be used in industries such as banking, where data privacy is the main concern to protect customers as well as the organization's data to maintain integrity and security. Uh, he's asking this question especially because there are no regulations regarding AI that would result in serious penalties as per the DPDP Act. Now, in this scenarios, uh, how can fintechs and fintech startups, in collaboration with banks or financial institutions, use GenAI in their operations or processes by maintaining a balance between these aspects? So, the role of GenAI in GRC, especially considering that there are no regulations around AI at this point.
Okay, let me take a stab, right? Predominantly, right, Gen AI, yeah, as you rightly say, there's no regulation, and we are keenly observing the space to understand how regulations built. There are countries who are working towards it, and we also see that Indian government will also have regulations around this as we move. There are work in progress, I assume. But more important, right, as a fintech or as a startup, what's more important that you look at use cases where you're not using with user data, right? Use cases like if you talk about typical fintech, right? Let's talk about a company which has a lot of user data, but there are a lot of other things that you have, right? You have data around fraud, you have data around the patterns from fraud, right? What are the different patterns, so you can do pattern analysis. You can do a lot of research work, right, using AI, where you want to look at a particular industry, a particular segment, you want to understand how the patterns of the segment is. These are the use cases where you don't use PII data, and as you start building around them, that's the asset that you start building around. And there are a lot of other use cases that you can do. More important is handle your PII data very carefully. Ensure that you take care of three more important pillars of security, right? Data at rest, data in motion, data in action. All these are encrypted, all these are controlled by you. You own it, you control it, you secure it, right? So these are the three key pillars that you start thinking about. I would say start with use cases where you're not handling user data, the PI data, research, trend analysis, predicting behavior patterns. These are something that are low hanging fruits that you should start with. And then obviously, as regulation comes and have more control over what you can do, you can tune your models around it.
Right. Tara, I'm just curious, a quick follow-up question on that.
Mhm.
So when you're training the data, would you recommend, using training your models in a sandbox environment where, the data is not exposed to actual, or the models are not exposed to actual live data? And also, at what point do you take the call that, yeah, we are okay with our learnings, and then now we are ready to deal with live data?
See, again, when you say training your model, it depends upon if you're talking about the previous use case of financial industry, right?
Mhm.
We have. I will be very curious. I'll be very careful when I'm using user data, right? I'm okay to use synthesized data, and I'm okay to use anonymous data where I'm not using any PII data. So if I, as Tara, you don't want to use my PAN card number, my email ID, my things. But if you look at my spend pattern, you can look at a user with X age, Y spend pattern that you can use, right? But you cannot have this. So you have to do a lot of work around your data, what data you're using for training, right? You don't go and push all your data and say we'll train it. Point number one. Point number two, as you start building more confidence and your accuracy levels improve, that's where you get more confidence to leverage this for better use, right? For your external users or things like that. But you have to be double sure that you are not using any PII data, so that tomorrow you don't get into those kind of compliance needs or things that you will get into, right? So to start to say net, it's more important that your data strategy has to be very good, right? You need to know what you want to use for your training, inferencing, and other things as you start building models around it.
Right. I think this space is going to get, very exciting in the next couple of years. And I think RBI has already started, taking some measures for, the accounting of AI models. I think in a recent circular they passed in August of 2024, there was one demand which required banks to actually account for their enhanced models, which include AI models as well. Again, continuing on the topic of compliance, and let me rope in Manish also at this point in time, since you've worked with a lot of these, BFSI startups. We have the next question coming in from Himanshu Manghani, who's asking us, how can AI help in creating compliance for crypto startups? Manish, any examples from working with crypto startups or any of these, new fintech firms in India?
Not specifically for crypto startup, but maybe I can give a quick view on what we look with, right? So when you're
Okay.
dealing with these fintechs, one of the things that I have realized is that they have to be compliant, and that means that they need to log all the data. Now, GenAI is a new field. Everybody is busy building the best model. Nobody thinks about the enterprise readiness and probably the operationalizing part of the data. Now, that's where Google has done a lot, right? In terms of making sure that we log all the API calls, right? There is also a feature to actually log the prompt as well, right? So you as a platform team who is actually making your LLMs available to your end users, there's always a way you are going to log a lot of data. And couple of compliance certifications like SOC 2, as long as you are able to log all these data, you will be compliant. Just to add on that, I think out of all the different cloud providers, Google has a very clear narrative how you use the prompt and how your data is sent. So the way it happens is, and probably we could have actually included a slide for it. The way it happens is, when you actually are using a Google LLM in your cloud, you instantiate an API for it, right? You make a call, and your prompt and the weights for that API call are going to a frozen model somewhere sitting, let's say in US, right? The prompt is used to generate the token, the output, and that comes back to you. Everything happens in an encryption form, and we kind of write it in a contract that we are not going to use your data to train our model. So when data is passing, it's encrypted, it's converted into weights so that it doesn't make sense to anybody trying to look at it. So yeah, these are a couple of confidence boosting features that we have launched very recently, right? That kind of calls out how we are trying to make sure that we are enterprise ready for compliance and for especially fintech customers.
All right. Thank you for that, Manish. Now, again, getting back to one of the topics that you had taken us through in your presentation, and that was with respect to Gemini 2.0 capabilities. In addition to multimodal, another thing that caught my attention was the fact that it claims to be the least in data hallucination. Again, a major worry point for a lot of IT leaders out there. How are you guys doing it at Google? How do you keep data hallucination to a minimum? And what do you recommend to your partners? I mean, especially the startups.
I mean, how we are doing it, that's a pretty deep dive question, and I probably would need to consult few of our deep mind researchers to give a accurate answer, right? But what I can call out is when Google released a 2 million context window, it was not just about releasing a very large window wherein you can, if you want to ask a question, let's say around Harry Potter, you can put in all those 7, 8 Harry Potter books and ask a question on any page of the book, and Gemini would be able to tell it. I think it's about making sure that when we are converting all that data into embeddings, right? We are using each bit of that data, right? As long as you are able to do it, the chances of hallucination considerably goes down, right? That's what kind of a promise we are making, and it's just a a flex to show that we hallucinate less than probably other models in the market. So
Right.
yeah, and of course, right, as I said, from enterprise readiness point of view, we do a lot of things in terms of doing grounding, right? We kind of partner with, let's say, LangChain, Llama Index. We have our own framework called GenKit. Using all
Mhm.
of that, you have different tools and accelerator, various ways you can actually ground the data. It can be data on the internet or for your own enterprise data. So there are ways you can ground the data and be pretty sure that the model will not hallucinate.
Got it. Tara, you wanted to contribute?
No, I think the point that I wanted to harp on was what Manish was saying. The second point, the grounding of it is very important, right? And that's where Google search becomes a very important aspect for your overall grounding story, right? Uh, and we give you that access to ground your response using Google search, and mm, that's where a lot of hallucination can be improved. Obviously, we don't say it will become zero, but you can improve from hallucination.
Yeah, just to add, right, when you are a user and LLM tells you everything, you will always take that with a pinch of salt, right? You are not very sure if it's accurate. But if you get a citation from Google search saying this is the PDF or a link which was consulted while giving you that answer, as a user, you have more confidence. That's all.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, a lot of our users would be curious to know what capabilities they can explore with Google. Is there a particular way that you could guide them what they can look into? Look at a few demos, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe I can take a stop there. Head over to YouTube channel. I think our DevRel team has done a fantastic job of building a lot of these demos, right? Go to DeepMind, Google's YouTube channel, Google Research, and one specifically called Google for Developers. These are a couple of YouTube channels I'll definitely call out, and they're ample video in last couple of weeks. I think just the way OpenAI had their 12 days of OpenAI, I think Google is having a very credible December of few weeks of Gemini, right? So head over to these YouTube channels, and there is a lot of demo contents, blogs that you can refer.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Manish. Well, that's pretty much all that we have for you in today's webinar. Now, Manish, Tara, if you have any kind of QR to display that would capture their feedback or their interest in exploring options with Google, you can put that up for our audience here. Thank you again, audience, for sharing your questions with us. I think there were some brilliant questions, some brilliant talk points that we had explored. And I can't thank you enough again, Tara and Manish. That was a great conversation. Well, that's pretty much all we have for you today. You guys have a great evening ahead. And this is Shomik Ghosh signing off from ETCIO.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you, Somik and everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.